Dumelang, my name is Mofuta Sefadi. I am from Lesotho. I'd like to welcome you to the Pan-African HR e-conference. It is an absolute pleasure to introduce you to the opening and keynote speaker, who is one of my favorite HR professionals. Johnny C. Taylor Jr., SHRM-SCP, is President and Chief Executive Officer of SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. With over 300,000 members in 165 countries, SHRM is the largest HR professional association in the world, impacting the lives of 115 million workers every day. As a global employment culture and leadership, that is a sought-after voice on all matters affecting workers, and the workplace. He is frequently asked to testify before Congress on critical workforce issues and authors the weekly USA column called Ask HR. Mr. Taylor's career spans over 20 years as a lawyer, human resources executive, and CEO in both not-for-profit and for-profit space. He has held senior and chief executive roles at IAC, Interactive Corp, Viacom's Paramount Pictures and Blockbuster Entertainment, Macquarie Woods LLC, and Compass Group USA. Most recently, Mr. Taylor was President and Chief Executive Officer of the Thurgood Marshall Fund. Johnny, it is an absolute pleasure to have you speaking to us. We know you would have wanted to be live in Africa, but welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Moto. And as you know, when we met last, was it last May? Yeah, it was last week's SHRM conference 2019. I promised that I'd be on the continent and actually had planned to be there twice in Ghana and in South Africa. And unfortunately, COVID happened. So we're going to spend some time talking about it. And while I'm excited to be with you virtually, and God has blessed us with technology so that we can participate and make good on some of my promise to be there. So I'm virtually with you all. The reality is this is a different, it's less than perfect. Let's put it that way. So in short, thank you. Thank you for having me here, and I hope to spend the next 15, 20 minutes talking with you, sharing with you some of my thoughts, but also then opening the floor to some questions. Mafoto, I can tell you, Mafoto, we were in the background. If you remember in Las Vegas, we went back behind stage, 20,000 people up front, and she interviewed me. And I had an opportunity to kind of give her some sense of what we were thinking. It was early on during my tenure at SHRM, albeit about a year and a half into my tenure. And now we're at year 3. So I have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what we've achieved, we've not achieved, those opportunities, and also make you understand what some of our hopes and dreams and aspirations are for Africa. Again, for those who don't know, and I know there are just a few, I hope, who is the Society for Human Resource Management. We are, at the end of the day, the world's largest HR professional association, I should say, and we indeed have over 300,000 individual members, 165 countries, but our mission, our purpose is fairly straightforward. Statements, and we have those. But if you get to know me, you'll know I like to take things down to a very simple, digestible kind of nugget. And the nugget here, and I hope all of us who are committed to it, is how can we, as a professional group, elevate HR the profession, HR professionals, and HR, meaning our people, our human resources. If we can elevate them all, I think we can make a significant change in trajectory of people over. I want to share with African HR leaders in this community how SHRM, our members, and the HR profession are managing through the current crisis, and how we're planning for the next new world of work to come. And indeed, it's muddy. Work and workplaces are at the very heart of human life, at the very core of it. We work to provide for our loved ones. We work to reach that career milestone we've been dreaming about. We work. Most importantly, though, we work to prepare for the time when we cannot work anymore. All of us are getting older, if you're lucky, because the alternative is not particularly interesting, right? We want to live a long time. COVID-19 essentially put the economy on hold. Being unable to work for countless people across the globe is taking a massive toll on many employees, their families, and their communities. And we understand and appreciate it. There's lives that were impacted by COVID, and then there are livelihoods. And frankly, both really matter. So while we need to return to the workplace soon, we acknowledge that we have to take a careful, balanced approach to doing it. But ultimately, we need to get every person on the globe, Africa, the US, the UK, we've got to get people back to work. And what we know we do that. This is a cornerstone of our recovery. At the end of the day, most of us, the overwhelming released from their jobs as a result of furloughs or layoffs, the people who are remaining in the workplace. Here in the United States, for example, 40% of workers always remained at work in the traditional workplace. For all that we've heard about remote work, a significant part of our population requires that it continue to work in the workplace. Yes, we had a significant portion of people being able to work remotely, but think about it. Your retailers, your healthcare professionals, the services provided in government, a lot of those people had to, throughout hotels, the business shrunk, they were still working. Hotels were open in most of the US in particular. And I know that we can get preoccupied with working remotely without fully appreciating that a significant amount of the population continued to work in the traditional workplace. Guided workplaces and workforces into this whole thing, into a new world of telework, virtual meetings, managing talent remotely, hiring people remotely, supporting employees' mental health, and frankly, dealing with all of the economic uncertainty that we've begun to experience. But here's the deal, HR people. Our work is just beginning. Are the one people migrate their way out because of it. Ones who are going to bring people back safely at the right time. We're going to help reshape and put our workplaces back together. And the optimist in me says it will be better than ever before. Therefore, as an HR profession, our mission has never been clearer. Every day, HR professionals are learning, they're managing, and innovating through a changed work environment. To help, SHRM is conducting ongoing rounds of research and analyzing data to develop new best practices for managing through this crisis and the recovery. And we're providing a constant stream of tools and resources. The place of the future will be different from now, and in some very specific ways. And so let's talk about some of them. New attitudes about remote work. Big question. Is it here to stay? Well, the reality is there's some cost savings that are associated with it. No question. I can tell you all over the globe, CFOs are sharpening their pencil tips and saying, we don't have to have 1,000 or 2,000 square feet. We can do this with 500 square feet. We don't have to have tons of employees coming in and worrying about coffee and a front desk, a receptionist, and we just electric bill. We don't have to do that. There are costs to be saved and squeezed out of our businesses if we allow people to work remotely. So there's no question that we're going to see more of it. We also know that one of the upsides to this, that we're going to recruit. We're going to be able to recruit. You all are recruiting. In the past, it was you kind of an office to recruit people. But now you can recruit people from everywhere. I want you to keep in mind that means you can also lose people everywhere as well. But the fact of the matter is talent acquisition and recruitment has been significantly, and I think forever changed as a result of COVID. One of the things that, though we don't focus on enough, is the danger of low productivity and burnout. Everyone thinks that everyone wants to work remotely. And the reality is that's not necessarily so. SHRM conducted some research recently, and we released it, that said about a third US workers, to be fair, we're going to do this kind of work around the globe, survey work, but about a third of US workers report that they are more productive working remotely. But 2/3 say either I am as productive or I am less productive. We're also seeing a lot of people say they are suffering from burnout. They're exhausted. If you're like me, and I remember it in March, April, May, when we were sitting at home, I'd roll out of bed at 7:30, grab a cup of coffee, and I'd start working. I'd often write through just call after call. Yesterday was one of those examples. I worked remotely, and at the end of the day, I was exhausted, far more tired and fatigued than I would have been had I just worked. So we have to be really, really sensitive to the downsides to remote work. And we know people are reporting higher divorce rates, people are higher suicide rates, employees are reporting isolation, and as I said, burnout. So we as HR people have to be really sensitive to the implications of people working remotely. It's also hard to maintain culture. That's a real issue for us as we think about this. If and especially for new employees, it's one thing if you were working at an organization, okay, and we decided in March that we were going to send everyone home. Well, you understand the culture, you've made your friends, you understand how to navigate it. But what about people who were hired during the COVID break? What about breakout, I should call it? What about those people? And haven't we, and is that there real potential that we'll have two cultures? There'll be people who were sort of pre-COVID and who we knew and our relationships were built, and then the people who don't or who weren't, who are new hires. We've got to think about what we're doing since there's so much focus on culture. And then make sure that people feel included. We talk a lot about diversity, but increasingly the conversation is around inclusion. And the fact of the matter is, if everyone's working in their own home offices, it's harder and harder to ensure that people feel included. In a workplace, it was already hard, but it's really hard when everyone's working in their own homes around the globe. Now, for on-site work, and that is people who are going to come back to the traditions, there's also like a lot that we have to focus on. Employers have a new role, and their new role is to create safe and healthy buildings. We've got to think about the environments, the protocols, the practices. We talk about PPE, taking temperatures, washing hands repeatedly, making sure that we have there's a lot that we have to do, and your workers are expecting it. In fact, demanding it. This is not acceptable that we return to the way that we were. I joke often and say it took COVID for us to realize we needed to be clean and hygienic. But that's where we are, and employers are going to have to focus on that. One of the things also that we're really following is the skills gap. Oftentimes people at that skills gap, there was such a crisis. Well, let me tell you, COVID represents a pause button. The skills gap is real. It's going to be exacerbated. And employers do not want to be behind when the recovery happens. In fact, people are going to come back and more pronounced than ever. Some jobs are going to go away. And when those jobs go away and they never return, those people haven't gone away. And they need to develop and acquire the new skills to compete in a 21st century post-pandemic world. Upskilling, reskilling is what we're all going to have to focus on for the jobs of the future. Again, they say, what is it? Included, there's some things, some jobs that we don't need anymore. And as a result, those jobs need to be reskilled. We can't have people, 30-year-olds, with nothing to do for the rest of their lives because they no longer have the skills for the future jobs. So that's work for us. Talent acquisition, I talked about that. TA practices. We need to be very, very conscious of making sure, as I said, that we are including people. We have untapped talent pools in many parts of the world, including in Africa. There are groups that we have not tapped into, minority or underrepresented groups, that we have to make sure that we're giving an opportunity to work and come back into the new world of work. And then there are new innovations in training and development. Receive training and development. The conference had to be in person, this conference, for example. And now we are using technology in ways that we hadn't done before. My comments today will forever be recorded so people can go back and stop and pause and listen to it. That's what has come out of this. The Zoom meeting world has allowed people to be trained and developed every day, 365 days a year on their own time, not at a specific time. The rise of virtual learning, we know that. And SHRM just launched a new product called PMQ, which is our People Manager qualification, where online we're actually able to teach people how to be better people managers, which hopefully will give HR people a break so that we can focus more on strategic HR, cleaning up poor management decisions. The idea is that real-time skills training